When you hear the name Florence Nightingale, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I bet it's a single, iconic image. But what if I told you that image is only half the story? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on her hidden legacy, not as some saintly figure, but as a total data revolutionary who used numbers to save lives.
Yeah, we all know this version of her, right? The lady with the lamp, the compassionate nurse, doing her rounds in the dark, being this comforting presence for wounded soldiers during the Crimean War. And look, this iconic image absolutely cemented her place in history as a symbol of care and dedication. But that lamp? It's kind of a distraction from her real weapon. What if her most powerful tool for change wasn't an object of comfort at all, but a revolutionary diagram? We're talking about a piece of data visualization so powerful it basically forced an entire empire to rethink how it treated its own soldiers. Okay, to really get this, we have to go back in time. The year is 1854, and the place is the military hospital in Scutari, Turkey. This is where her legend was born, but trust me, the reality on the ground was an absolute nightmare.
So when Nightingale and her team of 38 nurses showed up, they weren't just walking into a hospital, they were walking straight into a death trap. I mean, there were hardly any medicines, hygiene was basically non-existent, and these massive infections were just ripping through the wards. It became terrifyingly clear really fast that the hospital itself was killing more soldiers than the war.
Nightingale didn't hesitate for a second. She immediately ordered a top-to-bottom scrub of the entire facility. She brought in rigorous hand-washing rules, and she created actual systems for getting rid of contaminated waste safely. And what's so incredible about this is that she did all of it decades before Louis Pasteur's germ theory was even a thing people accepted. She was acting purely on what she could see, a direct, undeniable link between filth and death.
But here's the thing. Cleaning up one hospital, as amazing as that was, just wasn't enough. Nightingale knew that to stop this kind of tragedy from ever happening again, she had to change the entire system. And to do that, she had to move beyond stories and present undeniable, irrefutable proof. She knew that to convince the politicians and generals back in London, sad stories about suffering just wouldn't cut it. No, she needed to speak their language, hard numbers. So she meticulously collected data all through the war, calculating mortality rates, documenting every single cause of death. She was transforming the chaos of the battlefield into a powerful, data-driven argument for reform.
And this is where her true genius just shines. She knew a boring table of numbers would get tossed in a drawer and ignored. So she invented a whole new way to visualize the data, the Coxcomb Diagram. It was a completely revolutionary type of chart designed to show the scale of the crisis in a single dramatic image that was just impossible to misunderstand or, brush aside.
Okay, so let's break down how this thing worked, because its simplicity is what makes it so powerful. See, each wedge represents all the deaths in a single month, and it's color-coded to tell a story. The little red wedges, those show soldiers who died from their battlefield wounds. The even tinier black wedges are deaths from other random causes. But those massive, sprawling blue wedges, those represent deaths from preventable diseases, illnesses like cholera and typhus that were just running rampant through the filthy hospitals. The conclusion was just shocking and undeniable. The British Army's biggest enemy wasn't the Russians, it was its own terrible, unsanitary conditions. Way more soldiers were dying from preventable infections inside the hospitals than they were on the battlefield. This simple, powerful visualization became her ultimate weapon for forcing the government to actually do something. So armed with this irrefutable data, Nightingale didn't just reform the military. She used all that momentum to create an entirely new, respected profession. She was determined to make sure that nurses would forever be seen as highly trained, essential medical professionals.
So, in 1860, she founded the Nightingale Training School, and it was a total game changer. I mean, for the first time ever, a non-religious nursing school was directly connected to a major hospital and a medical school. This one move elevated nursing from basically a form of domestic service into a serious academic discipline. It literally created the blueprint for how nurses are educated all over the world today.
She also, literally wrote the book on nursing. It's called Notes on Nursing. And in it, she laid out her environmental theory. For her, nursing wasn't just about handing out medicine. It was about actively managing the patient's entire environment, making sure everything was clean, that there was fresh air, light, quiet, and good food, all to give the body its best possible chance to heal itself.
And with this one simple, powerful statement, she basically laid down a cornerstone of modern medicine. The idea that a hospital's first job is to do no harm, that is the absolute foundation of every single patient safety movement that exists today.
So why does any of this matter to us right now? Well, because the principles she fought for with her data are literally built into the DNA of every modern hospital you might walk into. Seriously, think about how a modern hospital is designed. Her pavilion plan with its separate wings, that's the direct ancestor of today's infection control wards and single patient rooms. Her obsession with fresh air, it's why we have mandated air change rates in operating rooms. Her belief in natural light and a quiet environment, that's now a core part of what we call therapeutic design. Her principles are literally built into the walls of our healthcare system. And you know what? Her framework is never more relevant than when we're in a crisis. Think about the first things we all heard during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wash your hands. Ensure good ventilation. These are Nightingale's principles, just as vital now as they were back in 1854. And her whole model, using data from a crisis to force long-term investment in public health, that's a lesson we are still learning today.
So when you really look at it, Florence Nightingale's true story isn't about the lamp. It's about the incredible power of a diagram to reveal the truth. And it leaves us with a pretty critical question for our own time. In a world always looking for the next piece of complex tech, how many of our biggest problems could be solved by just doing what she did? By simply measuring and visualizing the simple, powerful truth that's been hiding in plain sight all along.